Okay, what we're going to learn today is how to solve linear equations. And linear equations are equations that don't have an x squared in them and any other higher power like third power and so forth. So we'll see variables like x but not an x squared. Okay, there are 5 steps that can be done. They should be done in order, but not all 5 steps are always used. There is one step, this one down here, simplify, that can be done at any time. So I'm going to put a little asterisk there. That's the one that can be done out of order. I'm going to start by doing the simplest of these linear equations, where I just have to divide both sides by the coefficient of the variable. In this case, I'm going to divide both sides by the 3 that's in front of the x. That's what's meant by the coefficient in front of the variable. And since 3 over 3 is 1, you can cross it off when it's multiplied. So if you see the 3x, it means 3 times x. We'll cross it off, and that gives us 9 as our solution. And that was an equation that just used step 5. So now we're going to back up and do one that uses steps 4 and 5. And steps 4 and 5 would be simplify first and then divide. So on example 2, I'll simplify the left side to 3 and the right side to 8x. And once I've done that, you'll divide by the coefficient of the variable, which is 8. And you get an answer of 3/8. Okay, so some pretty simple ones so far. All right, it's getting a little more interesting when we have to gather our like terms. Okay, so gather like terms, and what I'm talking about here is all of the ones that have n in them on one side of the problem, and the ones that don't have n, the constants, you want on the other side of the problem. So let me highlight the ones that we want collected. All those pink ones should be on one side of the equal sign. And I'll do a different color for the other ones. All these terms that don't have a variable next to them should be on the other side of the equation. So we're going to go ahead and start out with an equal sign. And I usually collect my variables on the left. So the 12n's already in place here. These next two, the 4n and the 2n, they have to come over. And when they come over, the signs change. Let me explain what's happening here. I'll use the negative 2n as an example of why the sign changes. In order to counteract minus 2n, you would have to add 2n on that side, and you would have to add 2n on that side, and these would cancel off with a net effect. Let me get a white pencil here. And that these would cancel off, and it looks like what used to be negative 2n hop the fence to the other side of the equal sign and change to a positive. So the quick way to do this here is simply change signs when you change sides. So we're going to go with a negative 4n here, and then plus 2n. All right, a little scrunch there, but that will eventually simplify to 10n. And now I'm going to take care of the constants. There's a negative 28 on the right, and a positive 3 when it comes over joins it as a negative 3. Simplifies to negative 31, and we'll divide by 10. Okay, so our answer is negative 31/10. In the next section here, we're going to learn how to clear fractions, and that fits in as a second step up here. So clear fractions before you gather, simplify, and divide. You're going to take what's a complicated looking problem, and you're going to simplify it by clearing these fractions out of the problem. Now, what you want to do here is multiply both sides by the least common denominator. Let me highlight the denominators in this problem. 3, 2, and 4 all go into 12 would be the least common denominator. So I'm going to multiply these both by the first number that 3 goes into, that 2 goes into, and that 4 goes into would be 12. And that's called the least common denominator. Okay, we're ready to multiply here. In the first case, you're going to say 12 times 2, which is 24. 24, and then this bar down here means divide, so divide by 3. 24 divided by 3 would be 8, so that's 8x. Now I actually like to divide first, it's easier. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8, so we get 8x. Now the second half over here would be half of 12. We'll distribute over here also. And we're ready to take 12 times negative 3/4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Now, if you prefer to multiply first, it would go like this. 12 times 3 is 36, and the bar means divide. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Usually, if you divide first, the number gets smaller, and then it's easier to work with. That's why I prefer dividing first. Divide by the denominator and multiply by the numerator. Okay, now we have to gather all of our x's on one side. So I'm going to take this 36 back this way, and I'm going to get rid of the 6 by taking it over that way. So I have 8x that was already over here. The positive 36 comes over as a negative 36x. I have a negative 9 that's already in place over there, and the plus 6 comes over as a minus 6. So now I have negative, let's see, 28x, and over here I have negative 15. I simplified, and I'll divide by negative 28 on both sides. A negative over a negative is the same as a positive, so it's usually considered best practice to write it that way. Okay, another one here. Let me highlight on that last one that when we got done with this first step here, the fractions were gone. We cleared them. So we're going to try and clear the fractions out of this next one here. And if you take the denominators, 8 and 2, the first number that they both divide into would be 8. 8 goes into 8, 2 goes into 8. So your LCD, least common denominator, is 8. Okay, we'll first multiply here. 8 divided by 8 would cancel off and leave 7x. 8 times negative 2. Then you have half of 8. Don't forget the x. And then plus 8 times 3. And you see that we cleared the fractions out by doing that. So I'm going to bring all my x's and gather them on the left. And my constant numbers I'll gather on the right. So I have 7x minus 4x. Don't forget to change the sign when you take something over. I'll simplify when I do that. 24 was already over here, and I'm going to add 16 to it, which gives 40. And now I'll divide both sides by 3. We have our answer. Okay, I'm going to do one more here, and then there's going to be 4 installments to this note set. I'll just take it in chunks here. All right, first would be distribute here. Now, unlike the last one where dividing worked out fine, here 2 divided by 5 gives a decimal. So I'm going to say 2 times 3 is 6, actually negative 6 in this case. And then to divide by 5, I'm just going to leave it as divide by 5, fraction bar 5. And that is the answer you get when you take 2 times negative 3/5. Okay, here I'm going to have 3 on top and over 6. So 3 over 6. I could, if I wanted to, put 1/2 there. And then here I have negative 12. Now, it would be done differently if I had reduced that to 1/2, but I'm going to multiply both sides by 30, and that's the first number that 5 and 6 go into. So now I'm clearing fractions. I've distributed, and now I'm clearing fractions. I haven't done it yet, but here we go. So the first round gives 60x. Next, you're going to say 30 divided by 5, and then that'll be 6 times the 6 that's up there. So 30 hit the divide, and by 5 would be 6, and then times the 6 that's up there. So that's minus 36. On the other side, when we multiply by 30, I forgot to put that, we get half of 30, or this would be actually 90 over 6, which is 15x. You can see in this example it'd be easier to divide first. 30 divided by 6 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. And we have one more round to go here. This is negative 360. Okay, I have to gather my like terms, so I'm going to take the 15 over to join the other one that has x, and I'm going to bring both constants over to the other side here. 60x, here comes a 15x. I have to change the sign when it comes over. I have negative 360 already sitting over there on the right, and I'm going to add 36 to it. So this becomes 45x, and the other side simplifies to negative 1. Let's see, what would that be? Negative 324. Okay, I'll divide both sides by 45. 45. And now let's divide by 3 to simplify this. The bottom's easier, you get 15. The top is negative 108. And I can divide by 3 again. So this simplifies ultimately to negative 36 over 5. Okay, so that does it for the first page of section 1.3. Some of you have page 9 at the bottom. Others, I did it wrong, and the page is numbered something differently. But this is the first page of the 1.3 notes.